If you're married and watching this video, I hope you're living happily ever after. But if not, stay tuned, because today we're going to talk about what to do if you're unhappy in your marriage. This YouTube channel, Principle Based Living, is all about helping people find and achieve happiness in their lives. I believe that's what this life is really about. That everything we do because we want to be happy. And the problem is when we are experiencing unhappiness in our life, it's because of a lack of knowledge or understanding. And so we get conditioned in our life. So we're born into this world, and from an early age, we're just taught things and we observe things that are going on around us. And many of those things we just accept, and we believe those things to be true, or the way that this world is in which we live. And we never really question them. And then those beliefs become habits. They become part of our subconscious. And we go throughout our life operating on beliefs that have been created without us ever really turning our brain on and questioning whether those beliefs are true or not. And the way that that works is we have feelings or sensations or emotional and physical states in our life. And we tend to quantify them as either positive or negative or good or bad or happy or sad. When we're in a negative state, we don't like being in that place. And the subconscious part of our brain takes that as a threat to our safety or our well-being. And so our brain goes to work of trying to change that state to get us to a place where we feel happier or we feel better. And so through trial and error, we try different things. And if those things work to change our state, then we do that again. And if it works again, we do it again. And if it works again, we do it again. And after a while, it becomes a habit, and we never really question it. Sometimes the things that we pick up and become habits, it works in the short term. So it gives us an immediate payoff or result that changes our state. And so it seems like it works. And because we never question it, and because we're on autopilot 90% of the time, that means 90% of the time it's the subconscious part of our brain that's driving our behavior. So because of that, we never really question what's happening, and we don't really look at cause and effect. So we may see a situation that we're in, we behave in a certain way, it changes our state. So it looks like this caused this. So we were sad and now we're happy, and this created the happiness. But then the happiness passes and we're unhappy again. So this wasn't really the solution to our unhappiness, but it seems like it is. And so we repeat it over and over and over. Drugs are an example, or alcohol is an example of that. We're feeling an emotional state, we take a pill or we take a substance or we take a drink, and it changes how we feel. So it appears that, the drug or the alcohol is the solution to our unhappiness. Well, that may work for a period of time until the substance or the alcohol begins to create problems in our life. And then we begin to realize that, this isn't the solution or the cause of my happiness. It was just something temporary that covered up my unhappiness or my negative state. And at some point, maybe we realize that happiness ultimately is a choice. It's not something that is determined by our circumstance or situation. I get to choose my happiness, and I can actually choose to be happy in any circumstance or any situation. And Viktor Frankl was an example of that, who learned that through his experience in a concentration camp, where he found that the group of people that all experienced that common situation and that common experience actually experienced it differently. So some of them experienced it with love and happiness. Others experienced it with anger, and hate. Others experienced it with depression and chose to roll over and to die as a result of the experience. So the truth is, we can choose to be happy in any circumstance or situation. So with that foundation, let's look at the decision to get married. Why do we do that? And why do we enter into marriage? And think about your situation. So if you're unhappy now, we'll go back to, what was your emotional state like before you got married? When you were single, were you happy being single? Or were you looking for something that would help you be happy? How many of you were maybe at a place where you felt like the solution to your unhappiness was finding the right person and then getting married? And so your belief was that marriage would actually help me be happier. Kind of goes back to that false belief, right? That something outside of ourselves can make us happy. The real question is, if when I was single, if I was unhappy then, well, why is that the case? So what was I believing was making me unhappy? Maybe it's a belief that I'm unhappy because I'm single. And then I have the belief that if I'm married, I will be happy. Again, if I have a false belief, it's going to drive my behavior. I'll behave in ways in accordance with my beliefs, but it will not give me the outcome that I want. So if I am unhappy and I think that getting married is going to make me happy, I'm going to be disappointed, because I will find reasons to still be unhappy. Because as hard as this may be to hear, if I was unhappy when I was single, I wasn't unhappy because I was single. I was unhappy because I wanted to be unhappy. But then you may say, I didn't want to be unhappy. Well, if we get to choose our emotions with our thoughts, and I'm unhappy, it's not my circumstance or situation that's creating my unhappiness. It's my thoughts. And I get to control my thoughts. So if I'm choosing thoughts that are creating an emotional state of unhappiness, I must want to be unhappy. Now, sometimes in life, we don't want the truth. We just want to be right. So maybe I don't want to really look at that. Maybe I don't want to admit or acknowledge that I wanted to be unhappy. And that's okay. Nobody can make you do anything that you don't want to do. You can continue to believe that you're unhappy because you were single, and you're unhappy now in your marriage because your spouse is doing or not doing something that you think that he or she should or shouldn't do. Or there's some other circumstance in your marriage that shouldn't be that way. So maybe you disagree on how you're parenting your children, or maybe you don't have as much money as you think that you need in order to be happy. Or maybe the home that you're living in isn't the home that you wanted to live in. So maybe your spouse isn't providing the way that you thought he or she would, or your spouse isn't pulling their share of the weight, or whatever it is. All of those things are they're just really excuses for us to focus on and to blame and to say that those things are causing and responsible for my unhappiness. The truth is, until I'm willing to look at it and to take accountability and to say, actually, I am the one that does get to choose my level of happiness, I'm never going to find the solution. So what may happen is I'm unhappy in my marriage, and I think that the solution to my unhappiness is something outside of me. And if I hang on to that belief, I'm probably going to find more and more things to be unhappy about. And ultimately, it may end up in ending the relationship because I'm unable to find it in the relationship. So I will now go find it in a relationship with someone else. And so I end this relationship and I go begin a new relationship. And in the beginning, when I find the right person again, things may be good and I may be happy, but this is all founded on a false belief, and it's only a matter of time before the circumstance or situation or the person will begin to do things that do not fit your expectation of the way the person or the relationship should be, and you'll begin to feel some level of unhappiness again. And that whole cycle, that whole pattern will begin again. So what's the solution? How do you find happiness if you're unhappy in your relationship? Well, it starts with being honest with yourself and being willing to accept or seek out truth. So the truth is, we get to determine our emotions. And so if I am unhappy, I need to begin to ask myself, why? And why do I want to be unhappy? Because I've been conditioned throughout my life that there's some payoff or there's something that I get from being unhappy. Otherwise, I wouldn't go there. So I need to be able to look at that and say, okay, well, when I'm unhappy, what do I do? Well, maybe I blame others, and what that does is, on a temporary basis, it shifts the responsibility of my happiness to someone else. And that may feel good, because then I can say, well, it's not me, it's because of this or it's because of that. The problem is that gives away our control, and it keeps us stuck in that pattern. So I need to accept responsibility for where I'm at in my life. I need to accept that I get to choose my emotions and my state. Next, I want to look at, okay, well, what's the reason behind it? What's the false belief? And then I need to get to the place where I'm willing to give it up. Because nobody can make you give it up. If you want to hang on to it, you can hang on to it. And if you choose to hang on to it, I just encourage you to be aware and to pay attention, to keep in the back of your mind at least the things that I'm saying, and be willing to consider if what I'm saying is true or not. And if you get to the place where you're tired of the way that your life is and you want things to be different, to maybe begin to consider that if I want things to change, then I'm the one that needs to change. And as you begin to do that, if you will begin to do that, if you will begin to look at and just say, okay, I'm going to make a decision in my life. I no longer am going to choose to be unhappy. And every time I'm triggered or something happens and I find myself in that unhappy state, I'm going to choose to take control. I'm going to identify what are the thoughts and beliefs about whatever the trigger is that is causing me to be unhappy. I'm going to seek out new knowledge and information to help me change my paradigm or change the lens through which I'm seeing my relationship and seeing my life, and begin to see the good that is there. And as I begin to see the good and to express gratitude for the good and what's working in my life, I'll begin to see more and more of that. And what will begin to happen is your relationship will transform. And it will shift from a relationship where you are unhappy to a relationship where you can feel happy and fulfilled, loved and accepted, and basically create the relationship of your dreams. Thanks for watching. If you like what you're hearing, then like the video, subscribe to our channel. If you're watching on LinkedIn, then follow me. And if you want to know more, then visit our website at principlebasedliving.com.